have offered a sheet with the translation as well, which I think is quite nice. E te whānau hui, whae te makarangi kia marama, kia whae take ngā mahi katoa,
Tu maia, tu kaha, atu, aloha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa.
Ngā mihi nui, everyone. Thank you.
Right.
Welcome, everyone. We'll declare the meeting open. And do we have any apologies? Robin is just.
Yeah, we have a late Robin.
And I do have to step out at 1, so now I'm still going through.
Thank you.
We have Gary online.
Can you hear us, Gary?
Yes, I can hear you quite clearly, and I'll have to pop out at one stage about 11:15 because unfortunately someone's got themselves arrested, and I better go and get it sorted out. Won't take long.
And welcome.
Thank you.
We have any other apologies? There being none. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive?
I'll move that.
Please. Ellie and Terry, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. We will go to, one thing I want to do before we start is to acknowledge the events that have been happening in the Hawke's Bay and in Tararu. Our district has faced some challenges, but there have been severe effects in the lower parts of the North Island. They've lost 11 people. I would like to ask everyone to stand and we'll do a minute of silence for those that have been lost. Thank you very much. And thank you for that sign of respect. And I think it's worth remembering also that during the storm events of the last 6 weeks, we lost 4 of our own people, water-related events as well. We'll go straight to item 1.2, which is public forum, and welcome Louise Dean on behalf of Thames Craftivism Group. Are you with us, Louise? Thank you. Please take a seat. You'll have 5 minutes. The microphones are there for people with very quiet voices and to help people at the back to hear them.
Okay.
You may not need them, but they're there if we have problems hearing. So please.
Kia ora, I'm Louise Dean, this is Colette Lehman, and we're part of the Thames Craftivism Group. Can you hear all right? This is an offshoot of Transition Towns Thames. You've probably seen here a few times, or some of you certainly have. What the Craftivism Group does is foster activism through craft. And we want to congratulate you all on being elected. Thank you for standing for council, for being prepared to take on the huge task of running our district. We've prepared small gifts to thank you and also to remind you of our grave concerns about climate change. Our hearts go out to all of those who've been affected by the recent wild weather, and we appreciate the difficulty of the task you face in preparing roads and infrastructure around the Coromandel Peninsula. Sadly, such extreme weather events emphasise the need to act urgently on climate change. Many people in the Thames Coromandel region are taking action on it on an individual level to reduce their carbon footprints. For example, by walking or cycling instead of driving, using an electric vehicle, installing solar panels, choosing not to fly, recycling, and doing home composting, etc. But climate change is such a massive problem that we need, in addition to individual actions, we need corporates, governments, organisations and local councils to take strong action too. So we're asking you as councillors to take into account climate change and the environmental impact of every single decision you make. As a newly elected council, we would like to invite you to take a fresh look at where council could reduce its own carbon footprint. Where and how could you reduce fossil fuel use? For example, could you change the fleet to electric vehicles? How about reviewing power use and looking at solutions such as installing solar panels on council buildings? We ask you to make sure that all council activities and purchases have the least possible environmental impact and that you choose local procurement where possible so we can support local businesses. In addition, council could assist residents to reduce their carbon footprints, for example, by making peninsula towns more easily walkable and cyclable. We would like to see the council fostering local resilience, for example, by supporting community gardens, local power supply projects, and supporting more EV charging opportunities around the peninsula. So thank you all councillors for stepping up to the job. Please think seriously and creatively about climate change and do everything you possibly can to take action on this pressing issue. The situation is urgent and your positive action will contribute to all of our children and grandchildren having a livable future.
Louise, thank you. Before you go, are there any questions?
Yes, thanks.
Can you explain craftism to me? So
It's, I think it was sort of a way for people who don't necessarily want to be shouting at each other from a distance to connect in a slightly less confrontational way about things that we still feel strongly about, because shouting at each other doesn't work. And, you know, so that's the idea of craftism. And those of us who like to make things, it's a chance to get together and make things. We just doing it occasionally at the moment. When we've got the energy.
yes, I'd love to come along sometime.
That would be really
Yeah,
good.
I'd enjoy that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And just for, as the mayor, I would like to make sure that you are aware that this council has an absolute commitment to the changes that we need to make and to going forward with emissions reduction, with lowering our carbon footprint, with being responsible citizens. So everything that you say resonates very strongly with this council, and thank you for calling. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
We've also got our little, as Lou said, we're an offshoot of T3, and this is a little pamphlet we'll give out to that we have been giving out probably for the last 4 or 5 years to the public about things people can do as individuals for climate change. So these are coffee cup holders for your keep cups. And to thank you all for standing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And these will.
So there's one for each
get on
cup.
different-
Is this a conflict of interest?
Yes, do we need to put this
do
on the
we-
register?
I'm sure it comes under the threshold.
We're covering that off now.
So you want me to-
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This.
Little blankie for my.
I'm just Googling it, so it's an international movement. How exciting.
See, we got given sunglasses cases last year.
Yes, you're.
Rayhana, can you hear us?
I can, yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Just a second.
Is there one for Robin?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sure she would love that. Martin,
Maybe I'll leave these two and one for the councillor who's not here.
Yes,
They
yep.
could be passed on when
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, that looks like Melbourne.
So we'll welcome Rehana Robinson. Rehana, the floor is yours.
Kia ora, thank you so much. Ngā mihi kia koutou. I would like to say a huge thank you, as I'm sure everyone will be today, to for the phenomenal work that's been undertaken as a result of this catastrophic weather, the events that we've had to deal with. So it's a sincere vote of thanks, a sincere vote of gratitude from us from the far-flung Port Charles. Well cut off every now and then, but a special thanks to Civil Defence and all the contractors. And this leads perfectly into my critique. As you may know, my topic is the second item, actually, you're going to be discussing on your agenda today. Excuse me. Your very good actual draft submission on the future for local government. It's the review. They actually, because what I see in your actions over the last little while they're reflective of exactly what the people expect, want, and imagine local government, their community boards, which we have a fabulous setup. The whole community board setup is really, really good, and local council. And it's the core business of council is what people are happy to pay their rates for. Now, I actually did a forensic job on about the first 67 pages of this 261-page document, of which it was impossible to get a hard copy, but I got a bit lost in the weeds. So I'm going to go straight to the jugular and say, I want to know can you?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'd like to demand who wrote it, because of course the panel that's named there, of course they didn't write it. I'd like to echo your demand that you write about in your draft, but that you don't have in the recommendations that the council's going to be asked to consider during the discussion of this document. I think that you need to add into your, I would like to suggest that you add in to that particular set of recommendations is an actual recommendation that the council asks for an extension. The people, when they wrote this document, they said, we don't want to call it a draft. We're not going to call it a draft. We're going to call it a provocation. Now, a provocation implies that you have time to come up with ideas of your own. Now, unless you're on staff full time working through the summer, which is the time period they gave us to look at this, you are not going to come up.
Oh, no.
Rehana, can you still hear us? Because your video is frozen. Like the signal drop out there.
Maybe get her to turn her video on.
Rehana, if you can hear us, can you turn your video off? It might improve the signal.
Could be fired up.
And maybe when you go to you choose which one. Nice to see you.
Good video.
I don't know where.
Oh, right.
Oh, I know it quite well.
Charles.
She's right on the top there.
People never see
Don't buy Chinese. Yeah?
So we might have to come back.
Oh, because you can do that.
Okay, we'll move on. So I need a mover and seconder, please, for the public forum. Mover, Robin, sorry, Martin.
I'll
Robin, did you have your hand up?
I can.
And Rika, thank you.
Yep.
Right. All those, sorry.
Through the chair, if it is possible, and Rehana does email in sort of what she was wanting to share, could we get a copy of that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any conflicts of interest? There being none. We'll go to item 1.5, minutes for confirmation. Could I get a mover and a seconder to receive the motion?
I'll move.
Deli and Terry, thank you. The motion is that we receive the minutes for the report date 13th of February and the following community board meetings. So Coromandel Coalville minutes on 7th of February and Mercury Bay Community Board minutes from 8th of February. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes, I'd just like to point out to people on page 10, 4.2, and I suggest you read that resolution because it may raise its head again. It's noted that the chair, Gavin Jeffcott, raised concerns in relation to costs and did not agree that this was a good spend of ratepayers' funds. That I think will perhaps be raised a little later when the council has to consider this.
So that's the allocation of $100,000.
Yes,
for
yes.
bypass.
Yep.
And in the 2022-23 financial year, is that what you're talking about, Gary?
Yes, that's correct. That's the one. And I noted with concern that it was moved by Councillor Morrissey, which tends to raise what could be considered a conflict of interest.
Could I just a point of clarification? What's important to recognise here is that the community board chair was not speaking against the project as such. He just we already have a project design, and he thought that was adequate and didn't need to go back and get another design. So as far as the project itself goes, he was not speaking against it. And for the life of me, I can't think of a conflict of interest in this. So honestly, I'm a local councillor supporting a project which I believe is worthwhile in the community with an open mind. So I would like to know who my conflict of interest is.
Well, can I just make a comment? One of the reasons I do never, when I'm sitting on a committee board, ever move anything which may be possibly having to go to the council for a decision is a conflict. And that's why I just stay silent on moving things. And in this situation, the community board chair seems to raise a very valid point. There's sufficient detail already in that video we saw, and to make another one for 100,000 just seems to be, when we're spending money at this stage, completely unacceptable.
Through the chair, are we litigating something during a confirmation of minutes?
I think that we are in territory that we shouldn't be in the context of this meeting, because there's nothing on the table that I can see that is going to cause a problem for the passage of approving the minutes from the meeting. Rebecca, did you have something?
My question was actually for item 4.2, and so Councillor Morrissey's answered my question in his comment.
So what we're doing is approving the minutes. We're not saying that we adopt their recommendations. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We're approving the minutes. The recommendations have already been adopted by the community board.
Right.
We are approving the minutes. So unless I'm out of line there, the community board have already done that. We're confirming the minutes. But part of our function is to approve the decisions of the community board. That's part of our function as a council.
Right.
Can I suggest there's two separate issues here? One is whether council agrees with the resolution of the community board or does it wish to change it. And the second one is in relation to the allegation of a conflict of interest, which is a separate matter dealt with during the process.
Yeah.
So just once again for clarification, so the community board resolved to recommend the council approve the movement of the movement of the funding, blah, 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 right? So that's what they resolved. When we approve the minutes, are we accepting that recommendation?
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Gottlieb, if you have concerns about a conflict of interest, are you happy to raise that? Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. It will be necessary for you to raise that separately from this. Are you okay to do that?
Yes, I agree. The reason as we were going through it, I just thought people should have a look at it, because we are in a times where we've got some pretty dramatic spending that needs to be looked at, and this, when we've already had a video, just seems to me to be a nonsense.
Thank you. So we've noted your comments, thank you, and there is a possibility that they will be part of our annual plan discussions later on today. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. So clause 3, the Thames Thames Coromandel District Council minutes for the meeting on 13th of December and 20 meetings on 13th of December and 26th of January. We are confirming the minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this, please? Robin and Terry, thank you. Is there any discussion? There being none, put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. The clause 4, Coromandel Coal Community Board recommendations on the leases for Fire and Emergency New Zealand. This is item A, which is the lease for $100 plus GST per year for fire and emergency. Is there any discussion on this?
I'm sorry, which page are we on?
So this is 34, is that right?
5.
Page 5, through the chair. Councillor Botley, we're looking at clause 4A.
I've got the numbered pages. So what numbered page are we?
Got page 5. So item 4.
Through the chair, just a very quick question to clarify. These are just standard charges, I presume, that has been had previously. There's nothing.
There's nothing, no changes, my understanding. So, okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Clause 4B, which is the Coromandel Coal Community Board recommendation on the Kennedy Bay Fire Station, $100 a year. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
Get a mover and second for that.
Sorry, mover and a seconder, please, for the Kennedy Bay. Councillor Grant and Ellie, thank you. Okay. And the deed of lease with Firm Energy for the Coromandel fuel station. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Morrissey
I'll second that.
and Rika, thank you.
Could I just ask, that rental that they pay, is that the standard rental that they pay, is that being increased?
I don't know the answer to that.
No, I think it stays.
Stays.
Oh, there we go.
Our leases and licensing policy, that is the rental that was approved when that policy was renewed. For organisations like fire and emergency.
The standard lease.
Thank you.
That's a commercial lease though, that's not.
So the third one will be based on.
Fire and emergency would be $6,000. Thank you. Okay, so $6,000 a year. Any discussion on this? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Clause 4, D and E. Funding for the design of the Coromandel bypass, $100,000 be moved from the current long-term plan 2023-24 financial year to 2022-23 financial year. And that the chief executive proceed with the amended design to minimise disruption to Coromandel Rugby Club. Can I get a mover and a second?
I'll move that.
Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Rodley, thank you. Any further?
There's some discussion around this. Yeah, so this is the bypass $100,000 for the video that we saw, is that right?
No, what happened was we got a design video done. It was awesome. Then we went out with further consultation with the members of the public, and they came back saying there was definite sway towards a slight alteration to that. And in order to get buy-in by the community, we decided to try and scope it again, and it's coming back to further consultation with the public, basically, Terry, on the original concept.
So just to get it right, so the funding of the video was 100K, but
No, it wasn't. At first, the video was about 40. Where's here? Yeah, that first video was about 50K, wasn't it?
From memory, the first video was approximately 65. It's not only a video, but it's a full design.
That's it, yeah. And the second one's come about following that public consultation with some variation.
Yes, through the chair, the variation as a result of the public consultation questions is to amend the design.
Yes.
To move it away from the Rotary Club so that the Rotary Club no longer has to be moved, which itself would be a reduction in overall project cost. That would in turn move into the adjacent development plan, which is necessary under the Rotary Club. There is also a request for from the public consultation for roundabouts to be considered on State Highway 25 and on Rings Road to the north, which is included in the revised design. That comes in at an approximate cost of 60 to 65,000 from the design consultants. If that is successful and goes through the second level of public consultation, then there will be some fees associated with the change to the district plan, the designation, which would be in addition to that 65,000 design fee, hence the $100,000 rather, transfer from next financial year to this financial year.
Thank you, Ed. Any other questions?
So you're just sort of following up from what Councillor Revel said. So at the start, under 4, it says approves the Coromandel Coal recommendations, that the funding for the design moved from that year to that. But is this totally committing the council to that, the funding moving in there, or is that then something that is part of, because I mean, it's not annual plan stuff because it's this year. So is this actually totally committing council to do this, just sort of following up on what Peter said?
So I might need some guidance on you. My understanding is the funding is already committed in the LTP. It's moving it from 2023-24 to 2022-23. Can I just get some clarity on that? Donna, are you the best person to blast on that?
So yes, if you pass this resolution, then the funds will be moved through a budget revision process from 23-24 into 22-23, so that the project can continue this financial year.
So the funding, so I'm clear, the funding level hasn't changed. The timing of the funding has changed. Am I clear on that?
In actual fact, Lena, sorry, Your Worship, I think we actually had $500,000 or 500,000 slashed back to 100,000 for this project. So we've only taken $400,000 cut out of the LCP from memory, like
so just through the chair, if I can. So you know a lot about this, John. Is this design money? This is only design money, and I just
design
is a bit like moving it forward. What's the idea of moving it forward?
Design and district plan change.
There's no shovels involved with this.
There's no shovels involved in this.
So why are you moving it forward?
Well, if you move that forward, obviously you move the shovels forward too, Terry.
But we
what we saw, yeah, we haven't changed. So the original design stuff went out for public consultation. And as a result of that, we got feedback saying it would be better if we could just leave the rugby club where it is, do a different design, and it would be bypass through that one.
Can I just ask the capex for this project is on the budget?
Through the chair, my understanding is that this is capex through the community board. It's not an operational expense.
It's local funded.
Yes.
Sorry, for the actual construction work though, it is budgeted.
There is no construction work planned at this time. There was an original budget estimate of $5 million for construction. The original design work that we've undertaken identified that that was not sufficient for works to take place. So the original budget has been scaled back to the $100,000 in the 23-24 financial year. The public consultation identified changes to the design that was required, and there are resources available to revise that design in the current financial year, following on from the public consultation. We felt it would be best to proceed with the project design stage and designation of the new route, because that will then allow future development of adjacent sites to take place upon project development.
So I'll come to you in a second, Peter, but just to move this along, the funds have already been committed. The design and the district plan changes need to move along, otherwise everything that's gone into this will come to a standstill. Am I right on that? So there's a bit at stake here in making sure that this keeps moving forward. It's just the timing, moving it from next year into this year. Peter?
Is the construction of the bypass in the long-term plan? Is that budgeted for in the LTP? So we have a project where we've not, in 10 years, we're not planning to build it. And so we're going to do a design, which is going to sit on the shelf.
I believe it is in the LTP, my friend.
Let's bring up the LTP.
Bring up the LTP. It's definitely not.
Through the chair, Karen has her hand up.
Yeah, through the chair, the that project is budgeted in the following year at 2.8 million.
Thank you. It's there, it's not something all of that shown.
I think we need to put the motion. We could carry on debating the fine details of this for a while, but I'm concerned that it's a project that has been worked on for a number of years. It needs to move forward, otherwise everything that's been done to date will be lost, and I'm concerned about that. So I'm just going to put the motion, and if there's further debate on this, that we can have this as we go.
Are we not going to have any further debate on it?
I'm going to put the motion, Councillor Gottlieb.
Well, you're not giving a very open debate on this at all.
I think we've reached a point where we've probably had enough. Did you have another point you want to make?
Yes, yes, I do. I think we have a bit of a roading problem in Thames Coromandel district, and we've got to look at our priorities. We've got to get our existing roads back and running, and we don't need to be looking at plans of 25 million bypass, which is a nice to have. I agree, maybe it's a nice to have, but it's not necessary. It's not urgent. We have urgent roading plans that need to be paid and done, and that's where the money has to go.
So just to clarify, Councillor Gottlieb is not a 25 million bypass.
Thank you.
It's nowhere near.
I'm sorry, that when Ed was talking about it, he talked 15, then he went 20, and I went 25 million, and he looked and said, well, I can tell you this is going to cost over 30 million.
No,
you're dreaming.
It's nowhere near that. My understanding is around 2.5 million.
Yeah. Point of order, yes, it's nowhere near those figures being mentioned at any stage. And the other thing is, while we're talking about roading, Councillor Gottlieb, and resilience, which is a big word these days, the one bridge in Coromandel, if that was to go, that's the whole of the Northern Peninsula isolated. There is no other way for the entire Northern Peninsula to get off apart from that one bridge. Further north, you have options. Further south, you have options. At Coromandel Town, you have one option, one bridge, and that is it.
Well, this has nothing to do with the bridge.
Just part of it.
Sorry, Aileen Laura, please.
So just to comment from my past experiences and what I'm hearing from Ed is this is preparatory work, so it's zoning and designations and so on. So as we head into resilience considerations, it's actually really valuable to have designations in place. So when shovel-ready funds come along, we've got something that's actually shovel-ready. So I don't think the debate today is about the CapEx. The debate today about is whether we actually step forward with the design work that then leaves to the open to us.
Thank you. So, as Aileen has already said, it's about the preparation, and there is a lot of work in the previous council being done on preparation for this. I'm not comfortable to see that work discarded. I'd like to see this moving forward. So I would like to put the motion, but it is worth noting Councillor Gottlieb's concern about longer-term district-wide road resilience. I think that's a valid point. Your comments are noted and your concerns are also. Thank you. I'd like to put the motion, please.
You asking for a vote now?
I am.
Yeah, I know earlier on when we first got elected, we had that idea that sometimes we would put a brief line under a motion saying why we had done it. So are you saying that the comments like looking at resilience and vulnerability of the bridge can go under that motion just to reinforce why we're doing it? Is that appropriate? Maybe
I don't personally see the need. In this context, I don't see the need. I think it's a valid point, but I don't see the need in this particular context. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
Myself.
So would you like that recorded, Councillor Gottlieb?
Most definitely. When the ratepayers see what we're spending money on, I certainly want my name recorded against it.
Thank you. So Councillor Gottlieb voted against. I abstain. Councillor Walker abstained.
I abstain.
So we've got 3 abstentions.
Yep.
Okay, so where's that?
3, 4. Okay, we've got 5.
Okay.
Was it
Carry.
last one?
Carry.
6. Was that including?
No. No, that's right. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 8?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Oh, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry. My bad.
So based on that, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Can I just, what were the actual figures? There were 3 abstentions, 2 against, and how many for?
There was 1 against.
No, Terry was against as well, on my understanding.
No, I abstained.
You abstained, did you? I abstained, okay.
Thank you. So the motion is carried and concerns are noted, but I think there's a lot of work already gone into this, and I'm not comfortable to see that just put aside for the moment because there is an important preparation element in this. Item 2.1. Sorry. Rayana, are you back, Rayana? Can you hear us?
Yes,
Right.
I can hear you.
So if you leave your video off,
Okay.
just to try and improve the connectivity.
Okay.
So if you're happy, we'll carry on with your presentation to public forum, please.
Thank you. I'm a bit unsure as to when it cut out.
At the hot points.
Literally, the iPad got too hot was the problem.
So, Rayana, you were saying that you would like to suggest an extension to the time?
Definitely, yes. I would like to support the draft that your staff and councillors who use some of their summer holidays to actually work through this. I would like to support what they say inside your draft, but I'd like to see it as an actual recommendation that the council laws passed today, which you've got a set of, I don't have them in front of me, but you have a set of recommendations that you will be looking at. I'd like to, I'm not sure if I said this, but I'd like to see that the Mayor, Len Salt, is the person who is delegated the responsibility of communicating and representing the submission. That in fact, this whole report discusses the idea that there is a major disenchantment between, there's a major disconnect between when you've got appointed people representing, I think it says, in fact, you've got it on page 3 of your submission says, empowering the chief executive disempowers elected members, creating tension. So I think it's a worthwhile point, and I think even though we have an incorruptible and no doubt trustworthy CEO, the point of this entire document was to so-called expand what they love to call subsidiarity, which I'm sure most Coromandelers have never heard of. But anyway, basically to empower, supposedly, local councils. Now, unfortunately, the fact that the time frame has been so truncated and through the summer period, your draft says that's not good enough. And I'm saying that one of the recommendations must be, or if you don't do it, obviously I'm going to be doing it in my submission, that there be an extension to the time frame for this document. This document is a major overhaul. It is pumping in the concept of well-being. It's pumping in the concept of the treaty goes everywhere. We don't even know, there's so many interpretations of the treaty. How is appointing a Māori, myself maybe, to a committee empowering the well-being of someone who's going to school hungry? We have the social welfare department, we have the education department, we have the housing department. Local government's job is the job that it's been doing brilliantly through this catastrophic period. It is the job of local government to continue to take care of core services, which are hardly mentioned in this document. The first time the Labour government came up with a review of local government, they came up with another layer of local government. So that meant another layer of what they call rates, which of course is just another word for taxes. Property taxes, and the problem is you've got, it started out very small and now it's obviously grown, and it's just the funding for all of this feel-good stuff is, where is it coming from? And they talk about, we have to explore funding. It's not good enough unless there's proper resourcing, financial and any other kind of resourcing. There can be no devolvement of responsibility. There should be no unfunded mandates, and I think again, just compliment the TCDC staff and whoever council has turned up on January the 26th and who bothered to read this document. I think the main reason we have to ask for an extension is that ordinary people have, how many people in your area have read this document? How many people have seen it? I found it impossible to get a hard copy. I still don't have a hard copy. The local member of parliament photocopied and shrank it down to 4 pages on 1 page. Difficult to read as you're getting into the, you know, as we reach our 4th age. Anyway, the point being, this document needs to have more time discussed. It needs to be really honed. I think you've got recommendations from like 3 or 5 to 11, and it's all yes, 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 yes. We have to do everything to do with tikanga. And I don't know if you heard what I was saying, but I did reference the Treasury document, which they also asked you to read. And that Treasury document is called the He Ara Waiora. Please stop me if I've said this and you've heard it. That officially states the well-being of Te Taiao is paramount and inextricable from human well-being. There are responsibilities and obligations to sustain and maintain the well-being of Te Taiao. So you've got Tom Roa saying tikanga is basically common sense. Why wouldn't it be common sense? Why is my well-being different from your well-being if your skin is white? Why is that different? So here we have the local iwi elite, the pare hauraki pumping. Sadly, your previous incarnation of a council supported it. Pare hauraki pumping and investing in a business which is going to pollute our moana in the Hauraki Gulf, the caged kingfish farm. It's going, so here we have, we're supposed to be taking care of our environment. So let's not get too carried away on, you know, who's better or who's worse. We're not the chosen people. So as I told you, as one rangatira whose first language is Māori said, it's common sense. So those issues about te tiriti and appointing Māori to things as if that's going to make any difference, as if that's the way to go. I'm not saying it's not good to do positive work, and I'm not saying, and of course we all want well-being. And as I mentioned, well-being constructed under late-stage capitalism is a very tough call, but we are doing it in our communities. We're doing really amazing things. I'd like to compliment our community boards. I'd like to compliment the structures. I'm very impressed, especially with the work that you've been doing over the recent time. And ratepayers want to pay rates for roading rubbish. They may not want to pay the millions you were just talking about, but rubbish, roading, that's their core, your core business. Libraries, swimming pools, core business is what we need to fund. So, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. We are out of time.
Okay, I appreciate
your comments are noted. This is a consultation document, and your input into that, along with what we've done, and our councillors, I can promise you, we're all engaged in this. Thank you so much for your contribution. We will look at the request for an extension, and that is something that we've been doing along with a number of the other documents that have come down for us to consider, because the number of local government reforms that we've been asked to look at is fairly substantial. So we are looking at asking for extension on a number of things.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Kia ora, Reihana.
Were there any questions of Reihana? All right, thank you so much. Enjoy your day up in Port Charles.
Thanks. Yep.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so we don't need to confirm public forum. We've done that. So we're going to move to item 2.1, which is new restrictions on the traffic control bylaw regarding overlength vehicles on the 309 and Tapu-Coroglen Roads. Can I get a mover and a second? Move that, please. Councillor Morrissey.
Well,
we'll go quicker.
We need to do it.
Now, that's not me, and that's not me. That's me.
That's me.
All right, so Meg, will you give us a snapshot of what's going on here, or is it Leslie or Ed?
I think we can all chip in. Good morning, everyone.
Leslie, can you swing that mic around a little bit? Just swing it on us. That way. That's it, yeah, just so we can hear.
Leslie, would you like me to summarise the report really quickly for the members?
Really happy for you to know me.
Okay, great. So the report concerns new restrictions for overlength vehicles on the Tapu-Coroglen and the 309 roads. So we've had trucks get stuck on these roads in the past, even before the extra pressure on those roads. But because of the closure of Kopuhekawai, we think that it's really critical to introduce some restrictions under our traffic control bylaw to stop trucks or overlength vehicles using those roads and getting stuck and blocking the roads. So yeah, I can go into it in more detail if you would like, but other than that, I'll just take the report as read.
Thank you, Meg. We will take the report as read. I'll open it up for discussion.
Just a curious question is why is it 12.6 metres, not 12 metres, 13 metres, or so there's something magic about 12.6, isn't it?
Yes, through the chair, 12.6 is a length of vehicles under the New Zealand vehicle design regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry.
Ed, I think it's a good move, absolutely. Have you had any discussion around the forestry work trucks, and are they not going to use this road at all?
they would still be able to use the road for access.
Right, but not bring logs out through it, or only one truck?
They would be able to use a truck to come out, hence the 12.6. Truck and trailer combinations aren't difficult to manoeuvre along the road anyway, and forestry know that. So they very rarely use truck and trailers, but if they are undertaking access to a property, then they would still be able to use a truck and trailer. What they would not be able to do is to use it for access from one side of the peninsula to the other, except if it's an emergency situation.
Right.
Hi, Ed. You've no concerns about vehicle weights on those two roads? No. Good.
Any other questions? Okay, I think there's a general agreement that we need this, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ben, Ed and Leslie.
And I assume we'll police it.
Yeah.
The police will now have powers to this, so.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Another one.
Follow, we doing the other one? Both in one, shall they? Put the both roads?
Yeah. That's what's been written.
Oh, you mean number 3 agrees to inform the public of new restrictions on, so, I'm sorry, my apologies if I missed that. So we will put part 3, that the council agrees to inform the public of the new restrictions via council's website and other appropriate channels. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Questions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We
Can
go.
I just ask another question? I'm just confused a little bit. Sorry. So to Ed, really. So you can get a B train that's over 12 metres long. Is that automatically cut that one out as well, even though it's not a trailer?
A big train, a single vehicle, if it's less than 12.6 metres long, you can still use it. If it's got a trailer on it, it will be over 12.6 metres long and will be excluded.
Right, so all trucks are within that 12.6 metres. Yeah, okay.
So there's single body ones.
I see some pretty long, big.
Yeah.
I'm going to put one for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. We'll go to item 2.2, submission of the review into the future for local government draft report. We have gone through this fairly extensively. The recommendations have been included. So we're on page 79. We're all using the same thing, like all the way to the original draft, so that I've got the right page numbers here. So the submission from TCDC on the future for local government draft report. I'm going to take the report as read. And can I get a mover and a second, please?
Second.
And Delhi, thank you. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Leslie?
I thought it was a good submission.
Rika?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good submission, and I just thought maybe up front that we potentially could have painted a bit more of a picture of ourselves, that we have sort of 5 community boards that were very diverse. You know, we touch on this sort of throughout, but I think maybe just a bit of an understanding, you know, that we're at the edge on a peninsula, at the edge of a region sort of thing, so that, yeah, just so that people can sort of understand some of the challenges that we may face and the importance of keeping things local and what that means when we have 5 diverse communities.
That's a good point. We did a similar thing on the submissions to the 3 waters bills. Leslie, is there any problem with adding in some information?
We could add in a little more around some of the submission points that are there, just give it a bit of a more description.
Yeah, I sort of thought maybe up front, we touch on it throughout, but just sort of really paint a picture from the start that actually we are quite unique.
possibly just put it in the introduction as well?
I think that might,
Good idea.
but that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, happy to.
Very good submission.
Have you seen the Three Waters submission?
Yes, I have.
What?
So just basically what you do.
Okay.
Copy and paste.
No, if you copy your face, but you will look at it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's show me place that first paragraph, but change the second two to make it more relating to governance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Community.
Fabulous, thank you. Peter?
Yeah, on page 82, point 2.24. TCDC agrees with the recommendation and notes that clarity about the meaning of co-governance in this context would be helpful. I think it needs to be critical. So the clarity about what they are meaning about co-governance is critical for our understanding and our around all this. So not just would be helpful, it's critical. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you happy to modify that?
Yes.
224 page 82. So it's really changing the wording to strengthen that.
Yeah.
So that it is saying that it would be critical.
Yes.
To the debate rather than. I got that right?
Yep. Yep. And supplementary, just 2.54 on page 85. We talk 34,000. I thought it was 32,000. Remember, there was the discussion the other week about what actually the consistent number is.
We have been working on 32,000 with the updates that we've been doing. 27,625 rating units. The district population is a normal population of 32,000, so that's what we've been working on. This one says 34,000, so
about.
Through the chair, I took that number from the Informatics information on our website.
Yeah, and we are seeing a number of different, I think once we've got this census through in March, assuming it goes smoothly, I guarantee that we'll have some better clarity around it. We can talk
in
about
15 months' time. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a minor point. We've got, you're right.
Should we change that to, oh, so you've got that from Informatics?
I took it off our website because we had a sense that we had a projection done in the 2018 for the LTP, and that was based on some older information due to the issues of the census. So I just took the latest figures from the metrics from the website.
Excuse me, do we want to put in there that the permanent residents, but do we want to spell it out that 52% of properties are owned by absentee owners and 48% are owned by permanent residents? So to give how the population does increase, it will increase dramatically because slightly more are owned by absentee owners. I just raise that as that makes that example add to it.
Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb.
Just on the numbers, I think we need to be consistent, but I would defer to the experts to tell us which number we should use and make sure we use the same number in the two different submissions.
Any experts want to put their hand up? Let's agree on a number then. So if you've got that from Informatics and from website, if you're using 34,000.
We will double check and we'll make sure that the two submissions are consistent.
And if that sort of number, some people use it.
Previous.
Be on our website now.
Lorna's team, the economic development team, came back with 32,000 in the material that they used. So maybe agree on that.
We'll have an internal outreach so we can come up with a number.
So for the purposes of this and getting this moved, what we'll do is we'll move it subject to those amendments that Peter has asked for and subject to clarification of the numbers. Is there any other discussion on the document?
I just had one other point. So, Councillor Rebel's point about the co-governance. So co-governance is not new, and apologies on mansplaining this, but since 1992, there's been a number of co-governance arrangements around the country, everything from wetlands to rivers, all manner of things. It's just that in the last couple of years, unfortunately, the Labor government hasn't really explained co-governance that well. So now people are getting, trying to understand the co-governance relationship, and some people think, oh, well, it means a committee of 6 has to have three non-EV. But there are, yeah, like I say, there are examples of co-governance all around the country that have been working very well on all matter of
I think they struggle about co-governance and co-management, two different things.
Yeah.
So it's a good point he's trying to
What
raise.
Councillor was asking for is just to have the need for that to be explained, highlighted. And I don't see any issue with asking for that to be clarified. Rather than going any deeper into the debate, which is.
Yeah, exactly. That was my intention.
Yeah. So I pick up on Gary's saying too, if you read this, that the PCP community is about 34 permanent residents. It really isn't, even though they talk about permanent residents, there is like 100,000 people that own property there. So it does paint us as being a small community when you look at 34, and really it's not like that at all. So we do find a difficulty understanding these numbers and actually what they mean. But I think he's got a point in saying this is part of a wider community. These are the permanents, but the actual population is like 100,000, isn't it? When they did the numbers. So it makes us change the dimension of what we're doing. We don't look like just a small village when you look at that number there.
And this is some of the wording we've talked about putting in.
Oh, there's some numbers here. Yeah.
So these,
this
intro that kind of.
32,000, 70.
That's all right. So what I'm hearing is that this point about the makeup of our district is coming up again and again in a number of different areas. I think it's probably important now that we do have some clarity on that we have a consistent message and we have some consistent numbers. Certainly in terms of this, but also in the presentations that we're doing and the submissions that we're doing and other things. So Leslie, if you could help us with getting those numbers clarified so that we've got consistency across all of these submissions. Is that helpful? Does that make sense? Thank you.
And through the chair, the submission does point out that at certain times of the year, our population can double and even triple in size because we've got many non-resident homeowners. It does make the point, but I think it's difficult that we put that right up at the front in that introduction.
Some people think it's just tourists and visitors, but it's actually homeowners that are coming home. Yes. We can only make their address their home, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
And all properties that are owned, whether they're absentee or permanent, need facilities such as electricity, water, all those other things, and they need to be functioning for everyone. And that's why we've got a wider area that has to be taken into account all the time.
Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. We'll put the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Subject to the amendments that we're making and the clarity on the numbers. Any against?
No, I'm not against. I've just got a question. I wanted to point out that resolution 4 delegates authority to 2 elected members. Do we need to name those two?
It does. What I'd like to suggest, please, is that we are putting the motion, and thank you, Councillor Sinclair, putting the motion for 1, 2 and 3. So I'll put that again. All those in favour, 1, 2 and 3. Those against? Okay. Item 4, delegates authority to elected members and chief executive to approve any changes to the draft submission prior to its lodgement and council's representatives to appear before the review panel to speak in support of the submission should the opportunity arise. So what this motion is asking for is not to name the elected members, but that we delegate authority to 2 elected members. We still need to have the discussion on who those elected members should be, and I'd like to invite councillors to raise this with me later on. If you'd like to be involved in that, please stand up. But we don't need to do it now. So what we'll do is put item 4 as a motion, and then we can discuss who those delegates are going to be at a later stage. So all those in favour, item 4?
Aye.
Those against? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Item 3.1, out of cycle budget request exterior painting of the Tararu Arts and Culture Centre. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that.
Cheers.
So just by way of introduction, if I could, this item we'll be discussing this now. It's one of those between a rock and a hard place items, and it is something that also appears there. It's actually later on, isn't it? This is a really difficult one. It's quite a rock and hard place, and John will go into the details of it. It's kind of like either do it now or defer it, and it'll cost more.
Yeah.
So I'll get a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the motion. Rebecca and Robin, thank you. John, thank you, Aileen. Would you mind giving us a bit of an overview of what's going on here?
Thank you, Your Worship. So we've got Tararu Arts and Cultural Centre is an historic Category 1 building. It hasn't had a paint since 1991. It's well overdue. The current state is we do have flaking paint in places, exposure of the weatherboards. We've already dealt with in the last year some rotten timbers around things like window sills, eyebrows and the like. We've still got to deal with rotten barge boards and fascias, which are all at a over 5 metre height. So we went out to tender for this, and the prices that came back did catch me a little bit by surprise. The cheapest price was basically for a wash down and a 2-coat spray, but that's not really a proper job for this asset. What it really needs to be done is to be taken right back to the timber weatherboards, which will also remove all the lead paint from the building. And be done properly. Now, the issue we obviously have is with anything of maintenance on buildings, yes, you can defer it, but you only defer the problem till tomorrow, and invariably the problem tomorrow is more expensive than the solution today. I know it's tough times with everything that's happening in the district, but these buildings still need attention. We have 3 sort of major historic category wooden buildings in the district. This is one of them. This is the one that's in the worst condition, and thus the request for funding to make that happen. Because it extends the life of the building, albeit in operations expense, as the report says, that would be a district cost of $2 per household unit over the 7-year period, and ideally the building should be painted in another 7 years' time. It's located right on the foreshore of the main highway heading up to Coromandel, so it gets salt exposure, sun exposure and wind exposure, so it's in a pretty exposed position, which obviously has a higher impact on any surface. I'll leave it there, Your Worship, and answer any questions that councillors have.
Thank you, John. Gary Gottlieb, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it might have been helpful if we'd had a few photographs and perhaps seen the quotes that have come in, because you know, I have a few properties and I work on a basis that when there's sufficient funds you do it, and if you can stave things off, and that's what you do. And I agree that 32 years ago is a long time, but what's the difference with another year or so? We just don't know how much money we're going to have to spend on our infrastructure, and that includes roads. And I'm just very worried that if we don't get our roads back up and running, we're going to, as a council, we're going to be a small figure of what we were. And I think it's going to affect property values, and all sorts of concerns will happen. We need to spend money where it's going to help a greater number of people.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. Terry, Martin, sorry. Martin, you could.
Hey, just in the second paragraph, it talks about at least the two organisations. The two ones mentioned there are actually just the same one with their names mixed around. I'm not sure if it's the Art Society or the Society of Arts, but the second one is the Thames Music and Drama Group. So those are the two community organisations out there, which is not correct in there. And I support the full strip back and paint. I think if we just do the partial strip back and paint, then we will still have lead there. It's never going to be cheaper. And as John said, it's exposed to sun, wind and spray, but it's also very exposed to people driving up that coast road. And everyone who drives up and down that coast road sees that building there. It's a heritage one. They're currently doing some painting on the old railway station, Ngāti Maru have on Queen Street there, and that's going to look absolutely fantastic once it's done. I consider it is value for money, considering I think, John, they're going to have to chemically remove strip rather than just sand, rather than just blast it or sand it because of the lead.
Correct. It'll have to be chemically stripped.
Yeah, and it's a huge, if you look at it, it's wood all the way around. It's a massive building, and it's above that 5 metres. So yes, it's a hard rat, using John's expression, to have to swallow. But if we don't do it now, we'll have to do it at some point, and it's just going to cost more money. So that would be my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Councillor Roddy. Can I just ask for clarification? This is a list for discussion in the considerations.
No, this is for the actual this financial year, because with the changes that we've got, I believe John, we have got people that are this financial year.
So
it was already in our budget for this financial year. What this report is saying is that the budget that we had this financial year will have an impact. Yeah, okay, impact here.
It's funding the shortfall. I did stop.
So the decision made today will impact this financial year, and it's an out of cycle budget for this year. Terry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And look, I'm in the arts and I love this building, it's fantastic, but I do have issues trying to justify it at the moment. So I'm sorry about that. I just want to know, is there any depreciation being gathered on this building over its life?
Yes, the building itself, they depreciated, but painting isn't covered by depreciation.
It hasn't been, painting's not covered by depreciation?
Painting is not a capital expenditure, it's an operational expenditure.
Okay, so I was concerned about, where the money's coming from. So there's no money, it's not a depreciation budget, it's an out of budget request. So I struggle with it at this time and wonder if another year would be best. And ask is there's Heritage New Zealand, can you get some grants for them? Because it's a Heritage One building. Is there any possibilities of funding?
Through you, Your Worship, no. Heritage New Zealand will give it to private individuals and other sorts of organisations, but they have no funding for local government.
Thank you, John. Kelly.
I hear those concerns about, what we've got on our plate with recovery from these weather events, but we have so few heritage buildings. It breaks my heart what's been lost. So I'm definitely pro having this properly, because the next repaint will be a lot cheaper because it'll have an acrylic or, the right sort of material on it.
Correct.
I think it has to be done. And it is very visible. I drive past that building all the time and I just think 1877,
Yeah, you've got to look after that sort of stuff.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Is this a
I think
fixed
it's
contract?
great.
Sorry, councillor Gottlieb, what was your
Is
question?
is this a fixed contract? They're not going to come back and say, oh, more problems than we realise and it's going to cost a whole lot more?
I don't think anyone's fixing contracts.
Through you, Your Worship, there will be have to be some negotiation. I don't expect the price to go up. And the reason there'd be some negotiation is because the tenders that were received were actually 3 of them, and they were all rejected because they were non-compliant in terms of what we asked them to, how they present it. But I've had discussion with all 3 tenderers around their approach to the work, and I got a level of comfort that they were pretty much in the right ballpark. 2 of them were only $2,000 difference, so it's a pretty good indication.
There was some discussion when this was first raised about potential for communities to get involved to help with this, to keep costs down. The concerns, and I think you confirmed this, John, the concern is that there's lead in there and there's a serious health and safety management issue there.
There's three key issues there, Your Worship. One, you're right, very close to the state highway. You're over 5 metres in height all the way around the building, and you're dealing with lead. So it's not really a project that's appropriate for working bees of community-minded people to get stuck in on.
John, can I just ask, what will the timing be on this? When will it happen? If we approve it?
We will have to go back and talk to the contractors. They, like most tradies, are very busy. I think it'll be more a case of the weather. If we don't get this thing painted by 2/3 of the way through May, then you'd have to look at the feasibility. Now, we may end up with an Indian summer after what we've had so far, but it certainly needs ideally a good trot of good weather to do this job. So I'm still hopeful that it can be done by the 30th of June.
Thank you. Any other questions? Peter?
I don't have a question. My comment was, I think it's fantastic that we're repainting the railway station. When they repainted the Citizen Band building, it just so badly needed it. I think the same about Tararu, but I would put lipstick on a pig, and I would be voting for $80,000, not for $250,000.
So where does that leave us in terms of options? The options are not spelled out in the suggested resolutions. So do you want to have some discussion around the options there? The resolution is that we approve an out-of-cycle district-wide loan budget of 164 for the additional costs. Why the additional costs? Where's the other 100,000?
It's already budgeted for.
So it's an additional 164. So we've got a suggestion from Councillor Rebel that we look at the $80,000 job.
Can we test the resolution that's in the order paper at the moment?
We can do.
Because I'm happy to move that.
We can put it to the vote. All right. Okay.
Through the chair, you do have a motion and supported by.
Got a motion to move and to receive it.
Just to receive, okay.
So we can put the motion to approve the out-of-cycle district-wide loan budget of 164, which is over and above the 100 that's already budgeted. I'm going to put that motion now. All those in favour?
Aye.
And against? 1, 2, 3. Councillor Gottlieb?
Yeah.
4. So what does that give us?
You're casting a vote.
I'm going to vote for it. because I think it needs to be done. I know it hurts at this time, but I think it needs to be done, and I think if we push it down the road, we're going to find problems later on. So I'm going to vote in favour of it. All right, the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. How are we doing for time?
You're reporting.
Okay. We're going to go to item 4.1 and the shoreline management. Invite. Thank you, John, if you're still there. I'm very rude. I didn't thank you properly. Thank you. We're going to go to item 4.1, SMP Pathways Implementation, Proposed Project Governance. There are two parts to this. One is and we'll deal with them one at a time, the proposed project governance, and then here's the Thames part. So can I get a mover and a seconder to receive this, please?
I'll move that.
Councillor Rebel, Councillor Sinclair, thank you. I'm going to take the report as read and ask Eamon, is there a summary that you want to do, or do you just want to open this up to questions?
Yeah, no, I'll do a very quick summary to give it some context. The focus of this report is very much about the project structure and the governance, so that's what it's purely focused on. The project is the governance is a project governance rather than a committee governance, which is different to what we had in the past with the Shoreline Management Pathway Project. We're looking for 2 reps for both the Shoreline Management District Prioritisation Project and the Thames Protection and Resilience Project. It's indicating that yourself, the Mayor, is one of those reps on both occasions. That is to help give a balanced approach with our partnership with iwi. Iwi participation is embedded in the project proposal and is considered very important. And probably the last point I wanted to make that the district-wide prioritisation project includes a much broader range of things to consider. And although 2 representatives on the project governance is considered appropriate from a project manager perspective, consideration of slightly more would be okay with me as well.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, so Eamon, what are you suggesting might be potentially a better representation for the district-wide prioritisation? Are you suggesting like representative from East and representative from West as well as the Mayor perhaps?
Yeah, that would be through Your Honour. That would be appropriate. I think it is important to acknowledge that representatives of this project need to think with a district perspective and be limited to just their area. But they do bring local knowledge that is sometimes valuable in this type of thing.
So if that were to happen, would you also look to match that with iwi representation if there was going to be more council representation?
Yes, I would. And and coming back to the Shoreline Management Pathways Project, we had 4 and 4 for that project, and having those iwi reps nominated, I don't think would be to match those council representatives. I don't think would be an issue.
Thank you, Eamon.
Yeah, Eamon. You note here that consider regional, Waikato Regional Council people. Is there a desire for them to be on this, or is it just your recommendation?
I think it's a desire from a staff level, there's value that's added by Waikato Regional Council. We've pulled out a lot of that value through having them at a staff level in the project team. But going forward, there will be more value. There are a few, it's always a balance of pros and cons. There will be a bit more to manage if we do have regional council on board, probably slightly better opportunities for funding that we can pull from Waikato Regional Council. So the wording there is to consider that the terms of reference will need to be worked through, and we haven't put those in front of regional council representatives at this stage, which is why the wording is the way it is.
Right, so just, you know, 2 councillors, we've only got 1 councillor for the district. Were you looking for that to be a staff member or another councillor within the regional council?
So, sorry, repeat that question.
There's only 2 councillors. We've only got 1 councillor for the TCDC.
Yeah, I would expect, I think 2 is what I've suggested.
Yeah, but I've been wondering where that other person comes from. Just another councillor from another ward, another area of regional council?
I would probably put that question back to Waikato Regional Council in terms of what they would put forward. I would suspect they'd look to their climate change committee and look at who is appropriate to link in with the other climate change work that they're doing.
Right. I just wondered whether there was a council you're talking about would rather be a member of staff, or would you think they would?
No, it'll be council. Yeah.
Okay.
Robin, you had a question?
Oh, no, it was, sorry, just through the chair, it was just to respond to that, and that the regional councillors are represented by their particular area to represent the region as a whole. So I don't think it would be an issue to have somebody who was elected in a different part of the region.
You don't want someone from Taupo here.
If they had the expertise, why would that not be appropriate?
Well, if they got the expertise, what I'm saying, there's one area, council in the area. So I just look at the word 2 councils, one of where was getting me from, I understand.
They have committees on WRC,
yes,
on climate change committee, so it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and just a little bit of context for new councillors. So in the previous term, there was quite a bit of lobbying by elected councillors to, in fact, have a regional councillor more involved, and that never happened, and it was a point of contention, I think, across the whole shoreline management project. So yeah, I'm completely in support of having a WRC representative or 2, and yeah, I think it would be more important that we have someone who has some expertise, whether on a climate change resilience panel with the WRC committee, to have that expertise rather than necessarily thinking it has to be Warren, it has to be the TCDC rep.
So what I'm hearing is that everyone's, there's 3 years of work gone into this. This basically takes us to the next level. But I'm not hearing anyone who's saying, yep, we don't want that to happen. So I think there's general support and agreement for this. It's just the details and the nuts and bolts of who the representatives are going to be, and talking to EB, talking to WRC about how that representation make up for the projects that are going to go ahead. I think that's where we're sitting at the moment. I'm quite happy to move forward on this, and then we iron out the details of representation later on. Are we in general agreement on that?
I think so.
Yep.
I think just one point about the budget. You say there's a budget already in place for this, and you're quite comfortable that budget will meet the requirements?
Yes, it'll definitely meet the requirements of running the project and prioritising all the actions.
Yeah.
And in terms of building things, that's not what the budget is for.
Just about.
And there's
the concepts.
And there's the potential for additional funding, which you've highlighted, and I know it's contestable. Oh, joy. But we're comfortable that there's potential for additional budget, and we can go looking for that. Every bit helps.
So I would like to recommend that we, for the prioritisation project, that we pick up on Eamon's suggestion of having 3 rather than 2 TCDC representatives on that governance. And similarly, Parehaka.
I think Councillor Riddle makes a good point. I find myself slightly concerned that a prioritisation project which covers the whole district has only 2 councillors on it. I would personally feel more comfortable about having a little flexibility around that. I'm just not sure how we would word that. We've got, the resolution says 2 councillors. Actually, no, it doesn't. It points to me and leaves it blank to represent council on it. So we have got flexibility in the resolution with that. And we don't have the flexibility on the WRC, but we probably, my guess is we probably wouldn't want more than 2 councillors from WRC. So is everyone comfortable with 2 councillors from WRC?
Yeah, and I think last time WRC strongly resisted council suggesting who those representatives should be. They thought that was their job to nominate and pick these people.
Thank you. All right, so based on that, we're all in agreement about moving forward. I'd like to put the resolution. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you, Aon.
Yeah, we need to fill in the blank. Literally need to fill in the blank.
I want to go through the process, putting names in here. Because I'd like to, first of all, give ourselves a flexibility of how many, but also find out who's keen to do it.
Okay, so should we put another resolution that says delegates to the mayor?
Yeah.
The ability to appoint to those roles.
So is resolution 3 going to read appoints the mayor and 2 or 3 councillors? Because at the moment it's blank, so we can't.
I didn't want to put a number on. I'm keen to see who's interested and who's keen, but I'm personally not that comfortable with just 2 councillors for the whole district. I would like to see wider representation. This is a big project.
Can I ask Eamon a question?
Sure.
How soon do you need, because, you know, presumably this has gone through a process already and you're kind of hoping to walk away with some resolutions?
The conversations with Tapu-Coroglen have indicated an available date on the 29th of March for the first governance meeting. So having the councillors penciled in and available is probably the critical thing. In the next couple of weeks would be what will be required in terms of getting those names.
Cool, thank you.
29th of March, Amber?
Yes.
Thank you. So Aria's just typing up the suggested resolution from Aileen. And if you can read that out, please, once it's ready.
Sure. Okay. Delegates to the mayor to appoint the councillors to the Shoreline Management Pathway Prioritisation Project and the Project and Resilience for Thames Project.
Yep. So it's both of those, the wider one and the Thames project.
So what does, sorry. And I was going to say, what does resolution 3 that we just voted on say? Because at the moment it says appoints to the mayor and blank to represent council. So what's it going to say in the minute meetings for this? Because we can't have it blank.
I think what we probably will need to do is
Additional council.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
so that will that replace item 2?
So we just
additional
councillors.
And additional councils, okay. And the same for resolution 6, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. That will make me sleep much easier to know that there's no blank.
I'm happy. It gives us the options to. Okay. Will you put that the vote again?
Yes.
Okay. As noting the temporary absence of Councillor Walker, I'll put the vote. Motion again. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just want to thank and endorse Eamon for his cool head at public meetings that he's had to front at recently, and I really respect your knowledge and the way that you deliver sometimes quite painful information and don't get fired up by what have to deal with from the audience. I've been really impressed, Amon, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I would endorse that as well. Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So we are going to break the morning tea.
Woohoo!
Oh.
Any objections?
No.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And there was some leftover food from the Thames public meeting out in the.
Oh, nice.
Second and left.
Nice.
We're recycling it.
Thank you.
No, not recycling.